Welcome to The Old World Lives, a Warhammer Fantasy Battles podcast. You can find us on Facebook at The Old World Lives, on Instagram at The Old World Lives, and you can reach us by email at theoldworldlives@gmail.com. And now, on to the episode. Welcome to episode 32 of The Old World Lives, a Warhammer Fantasy podcast. I'm Chris, and with me tonight I have Niklas.
Hello.
And Jimmy.
Hi, guys.
And when we record this, it haven't been long since you heard our last episode, but that was recorded over a month, almost a month and a half ago. So I'm not sure anything has changed, but
some crazy time warpage. But yeah, we haven't done that much in between. We've had some fairly consistent episode releases now, which has been nice. We've just been up to a lot of recording, but not that much gaming in general, I think.
It's not too surprising. Yeah, where you live is going back into lockdowns, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's a kind of lockdown, and also the weather lends itself to sitting inside and talking more instead of doing stuff.
Yeah, here it's been raining for almost 2 weeks straight. There was like one day when it was really, really nice, but then it was below zero, so it was just perfect. But other than that, it's just been like 11 degrees and raining. That lovely autumn weather.
Yeah, same
I
here.
love fall. It's a great season of the year.
Yeah, it's a great season of gaming, if nothing else.
Yeah. If at least during normal times, it's a great season for gaming. But yeah. But speaking of, have you been getting any other games in with your neighbor, Jimmy?
No, I have not.
So it wasn't that magical moment of having a gaming neighbor that we thought a month and a half ago.
It was magical, but he works a lot. He's also into theater, so he has little time for gaming, and the little time he do have goes to Horus Heresy.
Oh, fair enough.
Fair enough.
So it's something.
You just need to show him some pictures of the stuff you're painting. Just get him hyped for fantasy.
Yeah.
Just lure him over.
Just force him to build Mordheim warbands in his spare time.
He does have he do have quite a few Mordheim warbands, but once you start playing Mordheim, you just want more and more and more, and then your life just goes into nothingness.
Yeah, I've been starting to notice that.
You just gotta do. It's gotta be a obscure Swedish reference, but you gotta do like the neighbor in Beck, and you stand out in the balcony, just waiting for him, and then just, do you want to come over for some more time? And then one day he will, and then won't be able to leave.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, you have to get that neck brace and a nice robe to wear.
Yeah. I do have the balcony in the right direction.
See, it's meant to be.
He usually do see me when he's walking the dog. See, he sees my forehead sitting on my balcony when I'm smoking my cigars or cigarillos.
Just wave some Mordheim figures or like a town crier around.
I could throw them at him.
To be fair, it almost sounds like you're kind of hiding from him. Just saying, oh no, he's walking his dog. I'm just gonna go down below the railing and just pretend I'm not here.
Oh, hi! I didn't notice you there.
Yeah. So, Jamie, have you done any fun hobby lately?
I'm painting dwarves as we speak. So not much other than just painting these guys, and I've been doing it kind of slowly, which is a bummer because I usually paint with such speed and finesse.
Yeah, it's the unit that you've been looking forward to, though. So take your time.
There's also other reasons because that just explains why I haven't painted, but let's not get into that now. Later.
Yeah, you're painting the Rangers, though.
Yeah.
So some really nice models. One of the few metal regiments that I don't have for my dwarves.
But you do have their predecessors.
Yeah, the lead ones.
Yeah. I do have the lead ones as well, but I need a few more before I feel them.
How many do you have of them?
I have 9 in total, and I don't have the old Bugman.
Yeah.
And the command group is included in that 9.
Yeah, I don't have the unit champion, but I do have the old Bugman model, which I use as the champion. But you have like the guy with holding the axe in 2 hands as well. That's the proper champion.
I forgot that there is a champion model, so I don't have a full command. I only have the banner bearer and the musician.
There you go. I love the banner guy in that unit, though. He looks like I thought he was a Chaos Dwarf when I got him first. It looks so evil.
His beard is so curly.
Yeah, and he's got like 2 horns.
Yeah.
Downward.
Ram horns.
Yeah, downward bent ram horns.
Yeah, but it doesn't have those large teeth, like the tusks that most of the old Chaos Dwarfs have, right?
If we do have them, he's hiding them well.
Yeah, snuck in the sneakiest ranger.
Yeah. But they're lovely models, and I didn't notice that you did have great axes stuck under their crossbows on their back. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I just thought they had their hand weapons and the crossbow on their back. It's like, this is
Yeah,
news to me.
they're so well hidden. I honestly didn't notice until I started painting them, and when I was getting around to painting the details, I was like, "Oh, there's a gray weapon here, just tucked in." Because you can't
That's really
even see
cool,
the
actually.
you can't see the like the head of the axe. It's so well tucked in.
Yeah.
Right between the crossbow and their love handles.
Yeah. Proper dwarfs.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to seeing the Ranger regiment painted up.
I won't paint their shields this month. There's gonna be later because I'm gonna go freehand on all their shields.
So you're just gonna batch paint all of the shields that you
Yeah.
have them. That
Yeah.
makes sense. It's like basing if you're doing something
Yeah.
more elaborate than standard basing as well.
Are you painting the horn of Karakir?
I might. I haven't decided yet. It might be the Bugman B or a beer keg, because I will field Bugman with these guys eventually.
Yeah, his Bugman's bar was located close to Karakir, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in
just
the valley.
yeah.
That
just
also means that
more-
you should get someone to build that brewery.
Oh man.
Just model it model it on the one in the dwarf book, Sixted.
Yeah. Oh god, I love that scenery.
Yeah, that was a great time for the hobby when that kind of scenery was in the books, and you say maybe you should build this. And I think wasn't there an article in White Dwarf about that as well, building it,
I'm not sure,
or was
but
it a web article?
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a great set, nevertheless.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of all the hobby that I've been up to lately. So, any other of you guys been doing any hobby?
Started painting a dwarf catapult that I bought, but then I realized that my Vallejo copper color had dried up.
Oh,
man, bummer.
I suspect Krell of some sorcery in this because I like he asked me what copper color I used, and I said I used this Vallejo thing, and he said, "Oh, don't they dry up?" And I was like, "No, they don't. I've had it for years, and it hasn't dried up even once." And then I open it, and it's dried up. Some
that just
wicked Krell sorcery.
Oh Jesus! He spoke the curse.
Yeah, and also
is that the alcohol based or the acrylic one?
yeah, the alcohol based.
Yeah, they have a tendency to, if there's even the tiniest little gap, it just evaporates the alcohol.
Yeah, it's so annoying though, because I had it for years, and then now when I needed it for like probably I don't need it for much more, but just need a tiny bit, and it's dried up. But when I was doing some research on Bretonia before the Bretonia episode, and I was looking through the third ed army book, and then I just got so interested with all the crazy stuff that I looked through it some more. And then I found the baggage train rules, which were really interesting, but very convoluted and complex, like most of the things in third edition. But I thought that could be a fun addition to Games of 6th edition. So
I mean, go ahead.
So I dug up some dwarf bits to use for like a baggage area in games as well. So I have assembled and primed them, and I'm gonna paint them later.
Nice. I mean, using those kind of things could be great objectives or additional victory points for scenarios, if anything.
Yeah. So I was thinking. So yeah, you there are the rules for how many crew you get or how many people are there and how it works. So like you have an area that's 6 by 8 inches and just a square, and within that square you have X amount of guys depending on the size of the game, and then they kind of being behind light cover. And then if the enemy captures it, they get a bunch of points. But the way you got points in third edition was pretty complicated because they started looting it, and then the rest of your army got jealous that they were looting it, so they had to take tests, or otherwise they will get frenzy and try and attack them. And the guys looting it had to take tests to see if they would stop looting it, if they could start doing stuff again. And there's a lot of rules. So I thought though that like if you attack this area and win over the guys who are there, or just unarmed regular dwarfs in this case, then you would capture the loot, and at the end of the game, you would score d6 times 100 victory points.
Ooh,
Because you don't know like what you looted, how valuable it's going to be. And if
you're playing against orcs and goblins and you loot their garbage train, I mean, no one knows what kind of lucky loot that you can find. I mean, it could be anything because they are looters themselves. So it could be relics or just hordes of teeth. You just don't know.
Yeah. I got the from the Battle Skull Pass. I got the tied up dwarf that I'm gonna give to my orc and goblin friend that he can put in his garbage train. So if I capture that, then they'll rescue the dwarf,
and you get the free Slayer in the next game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No matter what you're playing, if you're playing Kislev, you get a free Slayer. If you're playing Dark Elves, you get the free Slayer.
I mean, using Slayers in that kind of way could be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like, there's a Slayer roaming up in Kislev. Of course, it's gonna join the army.
Yeah, and maybe if he's still alive at the end of the next game, you get a deduction of victory points.
Yeah.
So just spurring you to actually throw him into the enemy monsters.
I mean, if he's alive, this should be a rule for Slayers. If they're alive, they give victory points to the enemy.
Yeah.
This should be a rule. I mean, you want them to die.
Yeah. But didn't Flogger say that they have some kind of rule like this in their army list? Like if they're killed by strength 5 or higher, they don't give up victory points.
Ooh.
Should be in the regular rules.
There is something like that in the Storm of Chaos book, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think you have to kill either all of them or not too many of them, because then you won't get any victory points, because they deduct victory points and like that. And there are some rules for baggage trains in the General's Compendium as well.
Yeah, some scenarios for it.
Yeah, and that could be great, since you guys were talking about narrative linked campaigns earlier. Just have like a raiding scenario where you go after a baggage train or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's nice. I used to have these bits, like mostly Skull Pass bits, the pony carts and the wall, and I also had the furnace from the Anvil of Doom. I'm gonna put in the baggage area.
Nice.
That makes sense. You could almost put that on, so it looks like it's movable if you want. Quite easy.
Yeah.
It's like putting on some rocks or a pallet or something.
Yeah.
For field repairs, I mean.
Yeah, so it's gonna be nice to use get some use of these, and I think if nothing else, it will be nice to just bring them to a battlefield and just make it look like this is where your army is staying for a night before the battle. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask, didn't Plastic Miner kit come with one of those ponies as well?
Yes, it had a different cart as well. I don't have that one.
I have one pony and cart. I sent the other one in a trade with Jens, but I have one pony and a cart left if you want it. I mean, you can get it if you when and if you get here, you can just have it.
You can never have too many ponies and carts. I have 2 already. One I've separated from the cart, so I was gonna use it for a unit filler, I think, but then I didn't. But I can use that pony to drag other things as well. Like use it to drag some war machines, for example, if I want to do that.
Do a dwarven version of the Galloper guns.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it won't move faster, but it'll look cool.
Yeah.
I can also say that Mantic have actually released one quite cool thing, because it looks almost in the style of Warhammer Reckoning artwork. They have a mine entrance for dwarves.
Oh,
sounds cool.
So you can either have it standalone or fit it into a hill or something, and then you can make a mine encampment with all of those ponies.
Nice.
I'm gonna Google this and see if I can incorporate it into
just Google Mantic mine entrance and you get it. You can also get a lovely photo of abandoned mine from Mantic Games, which also looks nice.
Yeah, at some point I'll have to build a dwarf table. Yeah, I was supposed to do some gaming as well 2 weekends ago, I think it is now, but it got cancelled because, as Chris said earlier, we're moving into a semi-lockdown here, so you can't meet people outside of your household. Pretty much.
And it's probably for the best to just keep it like on the safe side at the moment.
Yeah, but I want to play Warhammer, damn it.
Yeah, given how it's been for parts of this country as well. When they're doing local restrictions now, it's to stop it getting as bad as it was, but it's still a bit, probably not the best of times, so to speak.
Yeah. Other than this, I have done nothing else. What have you been up to, Chris?
Destroying an Eldar
Sounds perfect.
and turning it into a quite magnificent mage, if I can say so myself.
It
I'm
is
really
fantastic.
happy with that conversion.
It'll look so great.
I have to thank my friend Daniel, because he's the reason I have had like half of the bits for that conversion. He has been just been sending me every 6 months. Here, have a box of bits that I don't use, but it's just the best. So
Nice.
thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job de-Eldaring it and keeping the elf aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was quite good because this was the multi-part plastic Eldar kit. So given how the new kits are made, they basically have like layers upon layers of details on different parts. So the worst part was to get rid of all of the wraith bone on the chest piece. I've seen a nice conversion by a guy that I can't remember right now, which is quite bad, but he inspired me to make this out of this model actually. But he just replaced the entire chest piece. I just carved off everything and resculpted it.
Nice.
To make it look a bit more like cloth. But that's a nice model. I've also made some more time models because I haven't been able to paint because I had some bruised ribs and still have. And yeah,
viciously attacked by a dog.
Yeah, a massive beast of like 6 kilos. But if it hits, right, it's yeah. Let's not talk more about that. I've been yeah, but painting with bruised ribs isn't ideal because you can't hold your usual painting position for like more than a second.
In other words, sit like a shrimp.
Yeah, I've been semi laid back on the chair in the hobby room and just carving stuff, pieces of miniatures, and making a Lustria themed warband. The mage will be able to be used in fantasy as well because I made a special base for it, but the other ones will probably only be used as a high elf warband. And this is all Jimmy's fault.
Yeah, blame me for everything.
Well, you are the one that's slowly talking me into building an entire table, so...
Yes, build it and they'll come.
Yeah, the other two that are finished are 2 Rangers, which are in the list, and they are made out of the crew from the Scourge Runner Chariot, which is the Beastmaster crew from the Dark Elf Plastic Chariot.
And one of which got some screen time.
Yes, it was featured on the Hobby Roundup last Thursday at the time of recording.
Well done and congratulations.
Yeah, it's nice to actually get on the Roundup with a bare bones conversion that hasn't even been primed yet.
Yeah, and that they also mention that it's the old world.
Oh yeah, they mentioned that it was for an old world skirmish game, so it's wonder what they mean.
Just one of many. It's one of those, you know.
Yeah. There seems to be some love, but with some of the presenters for the old world, because there's been quite a lot of square-based hobby on that lately. Just more and more, and it's nice to see that they can show models that were released last week, and people have painted up the competition level models, and then this model was released when one of the presenters was basically a kid or like 4 years old or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, those Rangers look great. They look really like they've been living in the jungles for a while.
Yeah. Now I just need
dead lizards.
Yeah. Now I just need someone's lizardman paint scheme to rip off for their cloaks.
Oh well, maybe I have to paint some lizardmen.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
maybe
be
you'll have
too
to do a lizardman warband, Jimmy.
Maybe I will.
Or forest goblins.
There's a nice kit from Blood Bowl out there, which will be a nice base for more modern looking lizardmen.
Yeah, I reckon one of the start collecting boxes would be fine, depending on what type of warband you would do as well. If you want to do one of the start collecting boxes, do come with a massive lizard to have as just a random encounter if you want to as well.
Yeah.
Everyone
Monster hunt scenario.
Yes. Speaking of Blood Bowl, because this was one we didn't talk about before we started recording, there is a lovely Blood Bowl box coming up with the Bogenhafen, as it's apparently pronounced in English, Bogenhofen Barons versus some orcs that I can't remember the name of, but they've got gorgeous models.
But we're Swedes. We're gonna pronounce it properly. It's Bögenhafen.
Yeah, it's slightly problematic in Swedish, I think.
Well,
Aren't their colors pink, white, and with hearts on it as well?
No, it's black and gold and burgundy, I think. But still,
Well, it must have been at some point because I remember this vividly.
I think Bögenhafen is painted normally in white and purple, actually. Maybe some yellows, but I know there's purple in there.
Yeah, their current is actually gold, purple, or like a burgundy purple, and white. You're correct. And they look. I really, really like those models. I haven't really been into Blood Bowl models before, but if I were to get into Blood Bowl, these would probably be the ones I'm going for.
They look more Empire-ish than the previous team. That look more just human. These guys have the feathers and the puffs and the mustaches,
and the slitted sleeves and everything. But the other guys are like basic humans, and these are proper noble barons.
Yeah, these are. I think they story-wise are not like an actual team. It's just basically we want to play. We have the money. We're just gonna buy our slots.
Lovely.
Yeah, but the orcs as well looks really cool in that.
Yeah, the black orcs are menacing. They have like plates bolted into their faces instead of teeth. One of them does actually, and I mean the models are so cool. They're big, hulkingly brutes, and there's also a couple of goblins in there.
Yeah, the goblins are there to do all the things that the orcs don't want to do, like running with the ball, catching the ball, and scoring points.
Will we see any of these greenskins in your horde in the future, Jimmy?
Maybe, actually. I've been keeping my eyes on the goblins from this, actually. There's one of them that I want to turn into a goblin hero.
Yes.
And I mean, the black orcs shouldn't be that impossible to incorporate into building big bosses and stuff.
I'm actually thinking that if you look at the main big orc, you probably don't even have to change anything on it if you don't want to.
Nah.
And there's a troll that's carrying / throwing a goblin.
Yeah, proper orc tactic.
Yeah.
Don't throw the ball. Throw the goblin who carries the ball.
Yeah. I can see that some of them have like a American football style visor on their or orky helmets, so that might have to change. But other than that, not much that needs to change.
Yeah.
And then we have a lovely pair of referees.
Yeah, an elf giving a red card, and the dwarf giving the elf some time out.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it would be quite easy to mod that elf into a mage of some kind.
Oh yeah.
And the dwarf into like as someone that carries a copy of the Damask Crown into battle.
Like a dwarf scribe.
Yeah, or like a runesmith just try and stick a staff in his left hand. No,
this is gonna be a count as battle standard bearer. No one wanna flee close to the Book of Grudges.
Yeah, or like a scenario piece when you have him with the book on his back and maybe 2 or 3 more that just have to hold off, like as for a skirmish game, holding off raiders while the reinforcements are getting there or something like that.
I love this. I just love it. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. And the mage, you could possibly change the hand into something other than a red card and a feather.
Yeah.
Or make the feather be something else than a quill. But on the other hand, a quill would still work. It might be a mage that channels his magic through making stuff, like writing it down.
Or if you're an 8th edition player and a really intricate painter, you could paint the card as one of the magic cards.
Yeah. But
this is the spell I'm using now.
Or you just keep it with a red card and that's your display scroll.
Yeah. Maybe you could use it just to make it look like it's you don't have to make it red. You can paint like regular parchment and make it look burnt on the side, so it's just like the dispel scroll while it's being used and just burning up for releasing the magic to counter the spell.
Or you paint a graph on it and you always play, look at this graph.
Or just write in a really tiny script auto include on it to make it fit
Yeah.
in the eighth meta.
Welcome to How to Paint a Tiny Card, the podcast.
Yeah. Next time in episode 2 of How to Paint a Tiny Card in. So there have been other
moving
things
on.
as well. Yeah, other things that have been previewed is the lovely box, because we have seen the models in full now, of the new Warhammer Underworlds with Lumineth and Slaanesh in it.
Yes, they look amazing. Perfect models for alternate heroes or, for me, skirmish projects.
Yeah, and they have, even though people have actually asked this, we haven't worked with Games Workshop to put an owl on the mage, but have been asked that.
Yeah, it's a nice owl.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking the mage could easily be used in fantasy. Just need another base and maybe a head that doesn't look like it's scared.
I think that's
Yeah.
just because they paint weird.
Yeah, that's the new kind of eyes for the Lumineth as well. They paint them a bit different than the old elf eyes. But there's a good base for a mage, or just rebase it and you have a mage if you don't want to do anything. You have the Moo head guy. It could be a really cool.
Skip.
No, just changed or mod or change the helmet, mod the weapon, and you could have like a Phoenix Guard type champion, or change the weapon to a sword that is holding against the ground. You have a Swordsmaster champion, and then you have
Warbands.
And
you
then
have the actual Swordsmaster.
yeah,
All-
just cool.
All of these warbands have good potential for bits,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. The archer might need a bit of a mod, but could still be used.
Yeah.
And then we have to mention the Slaanesh Beastman.
The so-called kåtbock in Swedish.
Mm-hmm.
That
It's great.
that the model is amazing. It gives a lot of feel back to third edition Chaos with the Realm of Chaos, and it's just it's perfect, top notch. Why can't they just release full units looking like this?
Yeah, and speaking of just full units, or an entire army looking like the rest of that warband as well, because they're all good. That warband is all good.
Yeah. My favorite model, apart from the Beastman, which is my favorite, is the leader of the warband, a Chaos champion, having quite the ornate armor and wielding a spear or a glaive, depending on how you want to look at it, and a nice looking shield. A lot of scarifications too.
I'm seeing that one, the leader with the shield and spear. That would probably be a perfect model to use as a Druki and anointed in a Storm of Chaos list.
Oh, stop giving me ideas, man.
I'm trying to influence the other one as well, who's, if no one has heard it, is actually falling to the Dark Elves instead of dwarves.
Not really instead of.
True. As well as. But it has like a piercing of a ring straight through the wrist as well. That's a bit extreme. What else? Do we have anything else? There's a box that was released this past weekend, or on pre-order, which is the what is it called? The Catacombs box.
The Catacombs, yeah.
And we have talked about
one
those
warband.
warbands before.
Yeah. I don't think we talked about the elves. We only talked about the 3 ones that they did show us before.
That's true.
But they still do have the same potential, like we mentioned before.
Oh, definitely.
Perfect for skirmish, or just use
Or
them as
shades.
Yeah.
Shades and characters. Or mod them to be a Dark Elf warband for Mordheim.
Yeah.
So they had released the one that's more Daughters of Cain before. I don't know if they're even the same games. There's Underworlds and what's the other one called?
Underworlds and Warcry.
Oh, yeah,
Underworlds is the 4 to 6 miniatures and cards game, and Warcry is what could, if it's really generous, be called New Mordheim.
That's very generous.
Yeah, it's more like the what was called the Kill Team Armageddon version instead of Necromunda, that was released before Necromunda.
Yeah, so the Underworlds one was the one that's more Daughters of Cain.
Yeah.
Witches, and this is the Warcry that has it still has some vibes from the Daughters of Cain.
Yeah.
You have some females in there with big hair and daggers and like they're armored, but they all have cloaks and stuff. So there's like a mix between Daughters of Cain and Shades. So lots of good bits.
I think these are agents of the what's her name?
Morathi.
Yeah.
They are Cainite Shadow Stalkers.
Yeah.
But there have been rumors that there will be. Well, we know there will be, but there have been rumors that one of the releases, not in the too far distance, is the what some have dubbed Umbra Myth, which is the shadow version of Lumineth, basically.
They kind of did write that out on their webpage.
Yeah, but yeah,
changed it minutes later.
Yeah, so that's what I mean with it's not substantiated more than that, but it will come.
Yeah.
And that will probably be the other half of the Daughters of Cain book, if we can say like that. Likewise, Tyrion will be the other part of the Lumineth book when he's released.
As long as I get more models to play around with, I'm happy.
Wait, is Tyrion still in the universe?
Yeah,
he's blind.
Didn't he take the Sword of Cain though?
Yeah.
So shouldn't he be on the Dark Elf side then?
No. Malekith is still leading Dark Elves, even though he's merged with his dragon, and his dragon has been the dragon's name has been reused for the entire Lizardmen army in Age of Sigmar. Go figure. The Lizardmen army is called Seraphon, which is also the name of his dragon. If anyone didn't know.
But what is he and the dragon one?
Yeah, they merged. He's like a shadow demon.
Yeah, he's turned into Illidan from World of Warcraft.
But he's had multiple dragons.
Yeah, but the latest one was the one he merged with.
Okay, let's not even get started.
So
catch up with the program. Just get with the program.
So I'm just wondering when a prince of one of the cities will go north, find a sword, and then have to challenge Illidan.
Yeah.
Yelling something that not Frostborn hungers. I don't know. Yeah, but there's some gorgeous models. And speaking of gorgeous models, there's also a giant gorgeous model.
Yes.
Yeah, big feet boy.
Yeah. He's gonna be hard to use in 6th edition. I mean, of course you can. Yeah, I mean the old First World Giant was made for 6th edition just to have a more realistic size to the model.
Yeah. Was the Bone Grinder released in 6th or was it?
He was released in 8th.
Yeah, but
with rules in
fair
8th.
enough.
But
Yeah,
the model was released in 6th, or maybe earlier. I think
there's a lot of models that's been just we're just going to release a model. If you want to use it as an alternative.
Yeah, the same goes with the huge demons from Force World. They were released as greater demons at first, and later they became greater demons. I don't know if you remember the Forge World Galrauch, because that was their version of a Chaos Dragon to have a proper size. Because you had the GW model and you had the Forge World model, which was like 4 or 5 times bigger in height only.
Yeah,
I can only think of the one that they were supposed to release for fantasy, the humongous corn dragon. No, it's a regular dragon. Just slap it on a 50 by 50 base and play it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the giant is a gorgeous model. I mean, like I said, you can use him in 6th edition if you wanna, or use him as a Bone Grinder Giant in later editions.
Yeah. Note though that the Bone Grinder Giant is 1,392 kroners if you live in Sweden. And I thought I had it open. That's why the pause was here. And the Kraken Eater Mega Gargant, the Gatebreaker Mega Gargant, and the Warstopper Mega Gargant, that kit, because it's like the old one, there are more than one version to build. That's 12 kroners cheaper than the Bone Grinder.
Yeah.
Yep, because it's 1,380 kroners. So if you really want a Bone Grinder, you could just buy the Bone Grinder and not use it.
But if you want to use plastic, go with the Majestic Mega Gargants.
Yeah, and they're also loaded with extra bits.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have like 3 different variants in them that have a bunch of big unique bits. You could build like a whole village out of those bits.
Yeah, which is nice because that just harkens back to the old giant kit and all of the extra bits in that one.
Oh, do you know? I had an idea of how to use this giant, by the way. Kind of aimed at Jimmy. You could use it as the loader of the massive cannon in Middenheim.
Stop! Oh, I will have to do this.
Or you could sculpt better clothes on it and maybe some armor and just say it's like a remnant Sky Titan and have it eat ogres.
Oh, Jesus.
But just imagine using one of these and having like the Siege of Middenheim from the Storm of Chaos.
Yeah.
If there's anyone out there who want to be my sugar daddy, just give me a call.
I thought of rules for the Midnight cannon, by the way. If you like, it acts as a normal cannon, but you use either a small or big template, and just that's the thing, and then it bounces and just everything underneath the template.
So you could almost use it.
It should do D3 bounces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking you use like 3 artillery dice or something.
Or
Like
have it fire like grape shot and just use it as a lance weapon. Everything underneath is
the grape shot. Everything on that 6x4 takes a hit.
Yeah. That's been some really nice stuff released lately. It's almost evil that they release stuff that people want to buy.
Yeah, stop making me waste money.
You know what's also nice?
What's
our interview with Tuomas Pirinen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is coming up right after this.
And here's a few words from our sponsor, N-Splitter, noted orc strategist.
Stunties hide on the ground, and Pansy Elves hides in the trees. That's why I prefer Yayumis. They build so that low rocks with holes for coming and going through. They build some on hills where you have to climb a bit, but at least they's in the open where a lad can get at them. So you can lob a few rocks on the walls, bash through the holes and get in there and nick all their gear without wondering if the roof is gonna fall on your nut or if you're gonna fall off a bronze. I like bashing Yumi places. Only they don't call it a bashing, they call it a siege.
And welcome back. And as we mentioned, we have our returning guest here today, and it's Tuomas Pirinen, and we're going to talk some Warhammer. Tuomas, take it away.
Hello, this is Tuomas Pirinen, and I am a game designer. I've been doing this for far too long, 25 years, I think, the last time I counted. It's starting to be a bit scary to count it all. And those people who listen to the Old World Lives would know me most likely from my work on the Warhammer Fantasy Battle 5th edition, doing army books like the High Elves, and working on the others like the Dogs of War and the Bretonnians and whatnot, and then writing Mordheim and for Games Workshop, working on the Warhammer Siege and a lot of the scenario packs like Circle of Blood and Tears of Isha, and then of course the most importantly the subject of today's interview, I'm led to believe, I wrote the Warhammer 6th edition that the 6th edition Facebook group calls fondly as the People's Edition. It's a title I'm very proud of.
Yeah, it's also been called the King of Editions, the Editions of Kings, very aptly.
Yeah. I mean, and it's an important difference. Whatever it's the King of Sports or the Sport of Kings. It's the whatever it's the elite kind of product or something that is for everyone. So I think that the sheerly purely from the point of view of just mass appeal, I think for the classic Warhammer 6th edition probably was the peak if I got my numbers that I saw right.
Yeah. So people that have listened to our show before will recognize Tuomas from our Mordheim interview as well. And if you haven't heard that, you should definitely go and check it out. Even if you're not a Mordheim player, it's a great episode and it's a great interview. But could you just reintroduce your backstory a bit of how you got involved with Games Workshop and Warhammer in the first place?
Yes. So this was in the dawn of time when the snail mail, i.e. paper letters, were still the dominant way of communicating abroad. Phone calls were super expensive. It took literally, when you wanted to download your emails, it took hours to get a bunch of emails downloaded. So I was at the very embryonic stage of the internet. I was writing in one of the online groups. It's the news groups, the Warhammer, legendary Warhammer group. And I wrote a lot of tactics articles for the Warhammer 4th edition, starting just when it was released. And I wrote also a lot of homemade lists, army lists, and the units like the Kislabites. And it was during this embryonic stage of the internet. It was James Johnson, the game designer of great renown, who is still at Games Workshop, who is the probably best known, if you look outside just GW hobby for designing one of the true classics, Blood Bowl. Still an absolutely splendid game that has stood the test of time. And he was working heavily on Warhammer at that point, and he encountered the stuff I was writing, because it had gotten very popular over on the internet. And Games Workshop sent me a plane ticket to come and visit the studio, and I chatted to everybody there, and they decided to offer me a job. So I joined the White Dwarf crew. They first released my first army list that I did for GW, Kislabites in the Citadel Journal. It was very popular, so they thought that there might be something here. Now, everybody at that point, when they joined the games design team, they first did a stint at White Dwarf, which is very hard work. You have to produce a lot of stuff in a very short period of time. You learn about photographing models. You learned about writing quickly and the writing a clear, understandable articles, hopefully. And I was there for a sort of a half a year, a bit more, before I was promoted into the game design group, where I joined Andy Chambers, Joyce Johnson, and the Nigel Stillman is the doing games design, is the working on Warhammer, and we were all under the overall direction of the legendary Rick Priestley, who wrote the original Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Fantasy Battle, who really taught me everything I know about game design. I must warn your listeners, though, this is not a way you're going to get into the games business. Like, I am the only person in the world that I know that had this kind of Cinderella story, which I have to say is probably completely down to blind luck that Jervis actually read my stuff online. So please do not think that this is a valid career path. As most of the time today, you have to go to a school and study game design if you want to make it.
So you said that you started writing articles and army lists for 4th editions. Is that when you started with Warhammer, or did you play previous editions?
No. I played 3rd edition, and I played role-playing games well before that. So I was familiar with the White Dwarf when it was still heavily a role-playing game magazine. But at that point in Finland, it was extremely difficult to get any models or any of the rule books. I was one of the first customers of the Fantasiapelit, which is was the first shop ever to sell RPG and miniature game stuff in Finland, and still the dominant one over here. So I played 3rd edition, but there was nobody to write anything to. I mean, none of us had computers to begin with. I would have had to write it by hand on paper, because there were no computers. And there was no internet, so there wasn't anybody to show it to. So it was a combination why it was the 4th edition. Was that it was the first time when I could A, use a computer to write something, and B, share it with everybody in the world.
Nice. Also, I gotta ask, being a Kislev player myself, so you said you wrote the Kislev army list. Are you a big fan of Kislev as a thing in the Warhammer universe?
Oh, yes. I mean, I was brought up since I live in Finland, and I've always been a huge fan of the classic Russian and Polish fairy tales. Like, I love the mythology of the Central and Eastern Europe, and the visual look and feel, because it's so different with those metal face masks and the Polish winged lancers and the Cossacks and the curved sabers. And and it's something that has been very underused. Most of the fantasy tends to be medieval Western Europe, which I love too. But there was a lot of untapped potential there, and I was, as far as your typical young Warhammer fan goes, I was pretty knowledgeable about the subject matter, which is something that I think also when I joined GW, everybody appreciated. I mean, hey, they decided to publish the Kislavite army, and it was the first one that the GW ever put out.
Yeah, it's a very cool theme, and as you say, I don't think a lot of people know that much about Eastern European history as much. When I started my project, I delved deep into it, and it's just discovering new things all the time that you don't really hear that much, being focused on the Western Knights and stuff like that.
And also visually, like I would recommend to every one of your listeners, look up artist called Ivan Bilibin. I'll send the the spelling of the name later, so you can share it. That is the classic artist who made the seminal pieces of the Russian fairy tale artwork. Just stunning stuff that somebody really should do an army that is based visually just on his stuff, because it's the best there's ever been.
Okay, so getting back to you moving to England, did you get drafted to start on the 6th edition pretty fast, or how did that happen?
No, I was I was still a long time with the 5th edition. It's I worked on a lot of the army books. I rewrote the whole High Elf army book, almost my favorite army, but it was the 4th edition list was legendarily weak. It was one of the first ones, and it really wasn't written to be competitive, but it had the best background in my mind, some of the best stuff Bill King has ever made. And at that time, I was then so well established as the Mr. Warhammer at the studio that after especially I wrote the Realm of Chaos and the Vampire Counts books for the 5th edition that were both very big hits, that the project was handed over to me. I'd done also Warhammer Siege and Mordheim at that point, so my credentials were well established at that point. So it really was very natural. I mean, everybody just said that, yeah, you should write it. So I perhaps foolishly started doing it. And it was very, very interesting to do something, because it was still like a 40% at that point of all of the Games Workshop business. And of course, it was the granddaddy of their games, the first one they did. So it was massively important to Games Workshop at that point, and the expectations were sky high, and all the fans obviously had huge expectations for the 6th edition.
Yeah. So did you have things about the rules that you and Games Workshop knew that you wanted to have changed in the new edition? So was it more of a we need a new edition to address these issues that we know about, or was it a we need a new edition and what should we change?
Well, we knew we needed a new edition. Like the amount of FAQs and the army list power creep had gone for far too long. We knew that we had already released often a 2nd edition of several army books. So we were getting into a situation when the range was unmanageable. It was also huge. You had to have the magic box. You needed to have the arcane magic box. If you want to play sieges, you had to have the siege book. So it was also it was very hard for anybody to begin the hobby. So part of this was to fix the rules, balance the army lists, and they put them everything in a single book. Because we also found that if you think about you are a kid in England and you want to start Warhammer and you want to have like the full experience, well, you need the basic box, you need the siege book, you need the magic box, you need the arcane magic box, you need the army book for your army, and really Games Workshop core business, like where the money comes from, always was the miniatures. It was not the paper. So we were working against what we wanted, that is the people starting to play the game and get into the hobby. So the Warhammer was in from the point of view of the company, it was in bad spot, and also all this stuff took a huge amount of shelf space. So it was important to get this together. So one of the things also was that this was a lot of money. It was not just that you needed buy a lot of stuff, but you needed to be quite well off to just try the game. So we wanted to get out of that, and that's why the 6th edition book has the siege rules, magic rules, skirmish rules, all in a single book, and that's why the Ravening Hordes was such a compact army list that they served the community, I think, very well for a very long time.
Yeah. So the new edition of Warhammer 40K had been released before this, right?
Yes. Yes.
So how big of an impact did that have in terms of like the game design? And because that kind of had a similar idea compared to 2nd edition 40K, that it was a bit more compact into one book, right?
Yeah, not that much. I mean, we kept the two games separate on purpose because we felt they needed to have their own identity. I mean, obviously, I sat right next to Andy Chambers, and we went to pub pretty much every week. We went to the gym together every day. So we had a very good rapport, but the games themselves, we felt that we needed to be intimate with of the fan base of that game, and he was Mr. 40K and I was Mr. Warhammer at that point. So I think 40K was even harder situation because the original Rogue Trader, which is of course a classic book, but it was never really meant to be what people wanted to do, which was a game for running a competitive one-on-one battles. It was written very much like an RPG book, which is probably part of the reason why it was so impactful, because it really engaged people's imagination. But as a competitive game, it was not a product. It was trying to do something that was people were trying to use it for something it was never meant to be, really. So what Andy did with second edition, I think, was just common sense. Like, it's something that had to happen, that you didn't even need a plan. I mean, you'd ask anybody playing 40K at that point what should be done, they would have said do exactly what Andy did, which was put everything in one place, make sure that the rules work in competitive one-off setting, put the RPG stuff on a supplements or White Dwarf articles, but the core game should allow you to get into the game. Cause bloody hell, if you're a beginner and you take the Rogue Trader book, how easy would it be for you to put an army list together and try to start playing a competitive one-on-one game? I mean, just work.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I own the book and I looked through it, and it is there's a lot of stuff in there, but it's not very straightforward.
No. I mean, if you try to release that today, I mean, nobody would give it a second glance, because there's a lot of water has flown under the bridge. It's the games industry is completely different. The expectations of the people are completely different, and their attention spans are way shorter.
Yeah,
it's nice to hear at least that people have always been trying to make 40K competitive, even when it was brand new.
Yeah, I mean, originally Games Workshop was very much about the RPGs, and really Warhammer and 40K came out of especially Warhammer came out of that. The miniatures had pretty good profit margins, so let's try to make stuff that the people can use the miniatures for, and it just became much bigger than the RPG side. RPG side for Games Workshop certainly wasn't small. It was quite popular as far as RPGs goes, but obviously miniatures are a much more, how would I say, sustainable.
So a big change with 6th edition that was also introduced in 3rd edition 40K was like a force organization thing. Was that an idea that had been floating around for a long time for fantasy?
No, or rather it came from that we looked at the people coming to fight in the grand tournament, that they had literally armies of 8 models, and that really didn't, from our point of view, it didn't feel like they were playing Warhammer. At that point, we all were fans of the mass battles, and it didn't look like there was a mass battle going on. There was just 8 models on the 6x4 table, and you couldn't even see the bloody army because it was so small. We didn't feel it recreated a feeling of an epic fantasy battle. It was like a very small skirmish game. So the organization came, and also, I mean, everybody heard about the Hero Hammer on the 4th and 5th edition, and especially Rick was not a big fan. It's we all remember the Savage Orc Warlord with 16 attacks or something hideous like that, which meant that the rest of the army was there just to fill in the forced 25% of the entire points value, and nobody found that really satisfying over at the design studio. There are fans of the Hero Hammer, and I totally get it, and I think you still could do a very heroic army, but we felt that if you are making your average Bretonnian army and it has hardly any knights, or a wood elf army and it has no wood elves or archers, then it doesn't really feel like you're living the fantasy. So it was very much about, in a way, recreating the lore of the old world on battlefield. But I did it on the fly. There was no long-term plan. I just looked at the problem and came up with a solution. I showed it to Rick, and Rick nodded once, and that's that.
That's fantastic. So another big change from 5th edition, not so much the rules, but the feel of the book. For example, all the art is in black and white compared to the very colorful pictures in 4th and 5th edition.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so that was it's called a Mordheim effect. It was John Blanche, the legendary John Blanche, was my art director on Mordheim, and we really said that right, we'll finally let John do what he wants to do, and we already started this with the Realm of Chaos, that was already in that vein, and we went to the grim dark and the gothic and eldritch kind of feel. And at that point, we had Karl Kapinski, we had the Des at the studio, Toby, obviously John himself, Wayne England, and all of those guys. What they wanted to do was to do a carry on with the spirit of the Mordheim and make it the world feel more gritty and realistic. At that point, also, Games Workshop had gotten in a point where the audience had gotten very, very, very young. And we found that this did have an impact on that if you have very young people coming to the shop, they really, I mean, I have nothing against, say, 8-year-olds, but they obviously can't spend a lot of money because they don't have it. So that wasn't good for the business either. So there was maybe a little bit of correction there, but really it came mainly from the passion of the artists. And that the heads of the studio at that point, and of course Rick, who was a board director, went that let's go back to our roots. And if you look at the cover, the awesome cover that with the shield and the hammer, it all sort of has that craftsmanship like feel to it. Same thing like when I wrote the background, it's I wrote it from the point of view of somebody in the world, and there was a lot more of the original grim dark also from my Warhammer Fantasy roleplay days. But again, there wasn't a board meeting with the directors. It's really was a design studio driven initiative.
Nice. Yeah, that's very prevalent. What you're saying about the narrative as well, both in the rule book and the army books, and I really love that. It gives you a great feel of the setting.
Yeah, I mean we at that point we talked a lot about the unreliable narrators. So the idea was that every army book is written from the point of view of somebody of that race. Well, when we came to 6th edition, so they present the history and lore and the ethics from the point of view of that race. And if you remember, I wrote the histories of the Dark Elves for the 6th edition book, and I just went to town like writing it wholly distorted view of history, but it's how a Dark Elf would think. Which was kind of schizophrenic, since I'm such a huge High Elf fan, so I had to take the view of the enemy. But it was also a lot of fun, and we decided that we can contradict, the army books can contradict each other when it comes to lore, because just like real history, I mean, the Romans, when they wrote their history, they didn't write it from the point of view of Celts or the Carthaginians. Those were the bad guys to them, and they made sure that that's how they presented them, even though they claimed that they were speaking the truth. So we wanted to recapture that as well.
Yeah, that's great. For example, I love the dwarf book where there's this guy Redmayne sitting in a tavern, just berating all the youngsters in there and what really happened. And the Empire book where there's this guy telling the story to someone, and then while he's telling it, he's recommending some books that he just happened to write on the subject for a low price of just a couple of shilling.
Yep, I mean, this is it. It's the you want the player to sort of feel home at their army book. It's the and give their view, and even if they know that they are lying, if you're playing Skaven, it's a virtue to lie. So we wanted to get that feel into the books, and the sort of make you create that suspension of disbelief that you really are in the old world and somebody's talking to you, and And I think it's also something that they got the creative juices of people going. And I think the Alessio and Gab, it's who took over the mantle once I left on the 6th edition book. I think they did a wonderful job there.
So getting into rules wise, when you started working on this rule book, what were the points that you knew that you would change from the start, and what things just came along the process?
Well, one thing was like overhaul of the magic system and magic item system, so they wouldn't dominate the game so much. Overhaul of the hero system and the things like frenzy, so they wouldn't tilt the battle so heavily in favor of the individual heroes and monsters versus units. Clarity, there were some very, very, very long-term failings in the rules, like how the fast cavalry rules allowed you unlimited movement if you played the rules as they were written. So there was a lot of cleaning up to do. But I also wanted there to be a whole feeling of a whole game when you buy the book, that you don't need anything else. So that's why I took the siege rules I had written for 5th edition and upgraded them for 6th. Same thing, I took the Mordheim and Mayday 6th edition, the skirmish rules. But really the biggest changes, because we did have orders that Warhammer is a classic game, and the people were asking us not to go to the drawing board. They wanted it to be Warhammer. So my changes focused on the systems that people didn't like the magic system. It's the force organization and the heroes and the psychology, but the core system of movement, shooting, hand to hand. It's I clarified, I cleaned up, I rewrote things that were unclear or didn't work. But it was also important that the people who spend a lot of money and time collecting their armies, that we would not make rules that would invalidate them.
When the 6th edition was released, was there an outrage of angry gamers emailing you about having destroyed the game? Everyone was happy?
Not everyone, of course, but it was very well received edition. I think that because it harkened to a bit more mature look and feel, and it fixed a lot of the rules irritations that the veteran players have. Those guys are usually the most quarrelsome. And we just happened to be that the things we wanted to fix were the same things they wanted to get fixed. So I think that that helped with the reception. And I also think that the biggest problem really was the Ravening Hordes, which nowadays is probably the most fondly remembered part of it. I wrote that the first version of that in 2 weeks. Then Alessio and Gab took it and they did a revision of it. But the people thought that, oh, is this it? Even though obviously it was communicated multiple ways that there are gonna be full army books, but the word didn't get around. But nowadays, when you ask people what's the best thing about 6th edition, a lot of people say it's the Ravening Hordes.
Yeah, you can really see the flavor of 6th edition coming from the Ravening Hordes book. I mean, you got basically all the 6th edition books mashed into one, with few changes from the first Ravening Hordes book to like the Empire book. There's the great swords are a bit different, but I'm guessing that's because they got new models. But everything is basically the same. Points cost are basically the same.
Yeah. I mean, we did a quite a lot of playtesting, me and Alessio, when we were I was working on the Ravening Hordes, and he was helping me along. I actually did Ravening Hordes. The first version of it is outside the core hours. I did it as a freelancer for Games Workshop, even though I was working for them at the same time. But there was so little time that I had to start working overtime. And Rick, to his huge credit, said that no, you're going home once you've done 8 hours of work, and that's final. If you're gonna do freelance work, that's fine, but you are not doing overtime. And he was adamant about that, and I respect the hell out of him. But the Ravening Hordes really benefited that all the army lists were written at once at the same time and play tested against each other at the same time, which meant that the getting balance right when you have every single army on your fingertips at the same time without having to worry about any of the future books at that point, because they don't exist. it's I think it really helped.
So speaking of future army books, did you start planning those right away, even before the edition was released, or how did you plan those out for throughout the edition?
Oh yeah, oh yes. I mean, we were already like the writing stuff for them, gathering ideas. Of course, me, Alessio, and Gab, who were doing Warhammer at that point with a couple of assistants, we were immersed in Warhammer. So and Gab was like the studio's biggest dwarf player. So if you asked him what a dwarf book should be like, he could just rattle it on there and then. So we were not that concerned about the getting the books done. Of course, the Ravening Hordes was a great base. We knew what we wanted to do, so it was more sort of for the production and especially the model sculpting to align with it. It's the so there was a high degree of confidence about being able to produce the books, and we've already done a lot of playtesting with the edition.
How long did it take when you started an army book for the rules and the sculpts to align? Like, how long did it take to make one army?
It's 3 months was the usual length for the army book production. For sometimes there were changes. Chaos, Realm of Chaos took a lot longer. That was 6 months, and it was a really hard work. But then the Vampire Counts book I did in 6 weeks because there was this was due to the schedules, and we wanted to get the book out, and the miniature line production was aligning at that point. So it varied, but 3 months was a good rule of thumb. How long it took to write the book, write the background, do play a lot of test games, and the work with the sculptures and artists, so that we would get the art and miniatures done.
So I knew you left Games Workshop when 6th edition was still the edition played, right?
I left it when the 6th edition, just after it released, a little bit after that, yeah.
So what army books did you help write?
Oh, I worked on the Dark Elf list. The Gab took that and worked on it. In the obviously Beastmen, I had done a lot of work for that already. There was my High Elf notes. But really, the biggest thing was that we've worked on the Ravening Hordes and the much earlier. And like you said, that was really much a basis for the gameplay side of things and the magic system. So you could say I worked on all of them and kind of none of them at the same time, because at that point somebody else became the point man for each of the army books. So I would say that I had my finger in all of the pies. But
led the foundation for all of them, pretty much.
Yeah. But taking nothing away from everybody else. I mean, who wrote the dwarf books? It's absolutely the guys who were there after me. Same thing for Dark Elves. But you will also, if you've thumb through the books, you will see my name in the credits, so you can see where the guys took bits and bobs from what I've done.
So which contribution to a faction are you the happiest with?
For the 6th edition, I gotta say it's probably the Dark Elf stuff. I mean when we were laying foundation to the new detachment systems for the Empire, and the like you said, the list, it's me and Alessio had a lot of discussions there, but I think the Dark Elves were a little bit underdeveloped on the 5th edition. It's and I think they came together not just as rules and the models, but also the lore came together very well in the 6th, and it was expanded and developed a lot.
Nice. Yeah, I have recently eyed the Dark Elves a bit. I never played them before, but I'm planning on building some Dark Elves. And just going through the book, it's very modular. Like the way the army list is made, it looks very interesting. You can play it in so many different ways. It looks great.
Yes, yeah. And this was also like the one of the really important things when making an army is that you have to realize you can't just make endless amounts of models, except if you're making Chaos, because it's so popular that the people buy everything you make for it. But you actually have a limited number of codes and the shelf space in the shops. So you have to try to get a lot of mileage out of every unit if you can. And the old throwaway units like the old Dark Elf Swordsmen that were useless, utterly useless, not very nice models either. It's you don't really want to do that as a game designer. It's bad for the fans, it's bad for the game, and it's bad for the company because you're making a unit that nobody wants and you can't use in anything. But if you can make a unit that can be used in several different scenarios and in different army builds, then you are making something that is good for the game, and it's good for the fans, and it's good for the business.
I was going to ask this. You kind of answered one of the questions already. Which part of 6th edition makes you most proud? And you already answered the lore part. So which rule part makes you most proud?
I think it's just having guts to rewrite the magic system. I love the cards. Don't get me wrong. I thought there was a lot of creativity and uniqueness to that, but it's also made it very unwieldable just to set up a game and haul all that stuff around, and the hope that you didn't lose all your magic cards. Going into the dice-based system, it's I think that took the most nerve. I think in the hindsight, the history vindicated the new army organization, like moving all the armies into the core, special and rare. It's the history vindicated that, so I am pretty happy with that. But definitely on the time, the magic system gave me the most gray hairs.
Yeah, and the magic items is also a big change, moving from the cards.
Oh yes, and those had to go. I mean, come on, you could make such a nasty combos, especially because you have to remember that the Nigel, who is a genius game designer, and Jervis, who's the nicest man in the world, those guys, their focus is not on a competitive tournament play. So they created a lot of wonderful, cool magic items, and then some nasty git like me took them and made together just disgusting combos that could easily take the fun away from the game, that it was really the game was decided not by your tactics and strategies and the army you've painted and collected and put on the table, but the selection of the cards. And that's not... if you're playing Magic the Gathering, that's great. If you're playing Warhammer, it's not so great.
So what was your main job after 6th edition was released? Were you just helping out with the army books, or were you doing that?
I was leading the Warhammer effort in general. So that is White Dwarf articles, the talking to the business internally, like the sales offices, why we're doing this, planning ahead the next books, what order do we do it, working with the artists. It's a lot of time you just spend talking to the miniature sculptures, because the GW models have the kind of unique feel, and they are very tightly tied to the lore of their games. Like most of the fans know if if it's a but in order for the Games Workshop to pull that off, that all their model lines they match and they work together and they work with the lore and the army books, there is a lot of communication that has to happen. So one of the big things of a Games Workshop game designer has, one of the big tasks, at least in my time, was just sitting down with Jess Goodwin or whoever it was that was making the models and the chatting about it. I spent a lot of time talking to Trish Morrison about the monsters or the demon princes, so that you would get a good looking unified look and feel to them, and you could see when it didn't work so well, and you could notice some discrepancy between how the models look and how the lore described them. It's and the better the communication between the designer and the artist is, or the miniature sculptor is, the more unified the product looks.
These elves look great, but do you think you could make the hands smaller?
Oh, if I could make them smaller, it's
yeah.
No. You mean the models? That's a good question. I think that's got to do with the ease of painting. Like there was always a feeling that we want even a beginner to have a decent chance of painting a decent looking model, and that the bigger heads, feet, and hands do help if you are not super skilled.
Yeah, it's just a thing with a lot of 6th edition plastic models that they seem to have very big hands. Like the High Elf Spearmen and the Dwarfs come to mind. They scale them down a bit later, and the metal models had great proportions, but I used to remember all the plastic guys having massive hands.
Yeah, this could have something to do with the fact that the plastic models at that point, you first had to sculpt them in 3 times the actual size, and then the machine shrunk them down so you get the detail, because it wasn't computer assisted at that point. And I think the proportions when you are 3 times the normal height versus the 28 or heroic 32 millimeter, they look different. I think that could have caused it, because that was still done mainly at that point. It's with this technique rather than the designing it directly in computer. The sculptures still all worked by hand, not using computers like they do today.
Yeah. So when you were planning out the army books after the release, were you planning on releasing ogres back then? And was Games Workshop planning on phasing out Chaos Dwarfs at that point, or did you just kind of happen along the way?
Those kind of things really, of course, you do when we talk about what do we do next, and whoever is the studio head talks to the board and the head of sales, and really it was Chaos Dwarfs and Squats are the 2 classic examples. There was no demand, and since Games Workshop operates its own shops and the resellers operate their own shops, they don't want product that's not going to sell, and it's simple as that. It's brutal as that. The armies that nobody wants won't get produced. And of course, there is always the hardcore fan base. I love Chaos Dwarfs. I wrote 2 army lists for them. It's hoping that one day they could be released. But there just was nobody who wanted to play the big hats. And there is nothing I could do about that. And you can't tell the sales side that here is a product you can't sell, so we made them, but you're just gonna take it and suck it, and you're not gonna have many friends that way, and neither are you gonna have a successful, continuing, healthy business either. It's trying to sell people stuff that the vast majority doesn't want. So no matter how much I loved Chaos Dwarfs, didn't really matter.
It's funny now that you see them sell for crazy amounts of money online.
Yep. But same thing for Mordheim. Some of the stuff that's being sold there is just insane, absolutely insane. It's the amount of money.
Yeah, even the militia box for the Empire is sold for crazy money.
Yeah. The what happened a bit, I understood with the Empire, was that eventually there were so many people making models you could use for the Empire that it just bit into their sales, even if people like playing with it. It's there was just so many alternatives. It's which is kind of shame. But you look at the popularity of the Total War Warhammer now, you can definitely see that the fans of the old world are still a legion.
I have a couple of questions left. What is it about the High Elves that you like so much?
Bill King's lore and Jess Goodwin's models, like those where when they came out, it was revolutionary. You had never seen anything like them before. Like they were completely out of this world, and like there was nothing like them. Today, obviously, you see hugely intricate, detailed models left, right, and center. But at that point, it was a paradigm shift. And also from the point of view of the quality of the writing, because Bill King is a real author, like a really good writer. Love the man. It's the great guy. His Troll Slayer, the series is classic, of course. He wrote stunning work for the High Elves, which I really, when I was doing the High Elf book, and they asked me, do I want to rewrite the faction? I said, no, it's perfect. I'm not going to change a letter. I'm going to add stuff on the edges and build up on it and take the stuff that he mentioned. And take the characters from my own Warhammer Fantasy roleplay campaign, like Korhil and Belannair and Alithanar, but I'm not going to change a word, because quite frankly, I know Bill is a better fiction writer than I am. It's that's probably those 2 things that really tied me. It certainly wasn't how good they were on the battlefield. Like on 4th edition, the playing High Elves was torture. They were so poor.
Do you have any favorite Warhammer battles that you can remember?
The ones that they were published, you means?
Oh no, any battle that you played.
It was the siege battle against Gordon, who was the head of the studio at that point, and I lost that one, and it really hurt. But that was last turn, sixth turn, last roll of dice. He managed to break the castle gate and the get in and win the battle by one, and they take the courtyard. It was a great battle. As much as I hated losing, it's probably the best Warhammer game I've ever played.
Is that published somewhere?
Yeah, it's in White Dwarf when the siege came out.
Oh, I have that White Dwarf at home. I remember fondly there's a picture of you laughing and pointing at one of the siege towers broke down.
Yes. Gordon was very, very good player. Very good player. I am no pushover, but that was a heart-poundingly exciting. I still think that the Warhammer Siege, it's a lot of work to buy the castle and prepare all the siege equipment and play the campaign, but I still think it's one of the greatest ways to play Warhammer. Like, people should play more sieges.
Yeah, we should, Jimmy, this winter.
Yeah, for sure.
So did you carry on playing Warhammer after you left Games Workshop?
Yes, and and I play all sorts of games all the time. I play miniature war games, I play board games, I play tons of video games, obviously, since I make video games. So I am making a new miniature war game right now as well. And I get a lot of invitation to conventions, and there is Mordheim and Warhammer there, and I will pick up a game because a lot of people want to play me, and I love playing games.
Do you guys have any more questions?
I have a final one. So,
Right.
knowing what you know now and knowing what you knew then, what would be the top 3 changes if you could turn back time?
I would have made, it's my holy grail that I'm working on right now for my own game, but I would have made a campaign system that really sticks with you. That's something that you can really feel, play over a year or so, and really invest in your army and build it with you, and they still allow any newbies to join in the middle and have competitive battles. It's something that had a great clear end goal. The one thing I enjoyed a lot making Mordheim, but the one thing that was missing, I think, was the satisfying ending to campaigns. So that would be one. That's what Mighty Empires tried to do, but obviously was way too complex. And I would have probably I would have made it alternate activation. It's the rather than you go, I go. Now, obviously, at that point, this was not an option. If I'd suggested that, Rick would have just said that oh, come on, Tuomas, you're such a joker. We are not going to ruin a classic game. And he would have had good reasons to do that. But if I wouldn't have to care about any of that, I would have made it alternate activation. It's an initiative system or a leadership-based system or even a card-based system. I think it would have made it much more exciting. And I think it's bizarrely, I would have allowed a little bit more Hero Hammer. It's I would have made that there'd be a big downsides if you go down to a very small force, but maybe I was a tiny little bit restrictive. It's I was very, very, very severe that I wanted to see armies, not a clumps of 3 to 5 models on the table when they're playing Warhammer. But I've maybe I mellowed when I've gotten older, and I'm more understanding to people who just want to have a Chaos Lord Bloodthirster and 3 Juggernauts, and that's it.
Yeah. All right. I had one final question as well. What do you think your biggest contribution was to Sixth? But you've answered so many questions. I can answer this as well, I guess.
Well, I mean, it was somebody had to take the bull by the horns and write the damn thing. And remember that the writing that book, it wasn't just the rules or just the lore. It was having a working relationship with John Blanche so that the art would come together. Having working relationship with the model and the miniature sculptures so that the armies that went into the box would come together. Working with the cover artists so that it would have a front face, the face that you could really sell the game in. Leading a project that is much more than just sitting in a corner and typing some words. So just getting the damn beast out on time, to a budget, on schedule, and the communicating it to the rest of the company and the fans. It's I think the biggest thing is its longevity. Like, I am stunned how many fan sites and Facebook groups and the Reddit channels there are for the 6th edition. Like, it's really, really unlike any of the other editions. It seems to have stuck with people. And in this profession, that's what you live for. You want to make, like, do that when you were a kid and you played your first role-playing game or Warhammer game. It blew your mind that something this cool could exist, and you're hoping you can give that kind of memory to somebody else. That's what gets me out of the bed in the morning to make games. So that's what I live for, and it seems like the 6th edition had a little bit of that pixie dust, that magic that makes people remember it.
Yeah, it's truly fantastic. You did a very good job on it.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, do I have anything more, or should we release you to carry on with your evening?
I just want to say one thing to the 6th edition fans. It's the if you check my designer page, it's the ping me there. I am working on a new the miniature war game, and no, I'm not planning to challenge Games Workshop, because that would be silly. I'm a single person, but there are some things in it that the even if you are a dyed-in-a-wool Warhammer player, that you could find interesting and useful. So I could definitely would welcome more playtesters and more people chatting about rules. But I'm open. You want to talk to me about the 6th edition, by all means, come and visit my page and say hi and ask anything you want.
We'll make sure there's a link to your page when we put this episode out, so people will have an easier time to find it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was great talking to you.
Excellent. I really enjoyed it. And thanks to all the fans, because at the end of the day, there is no point to my job if there are no players. So you guys are the other half. We who make the games are the other half, and you who the play are the other half. And we can't exist without each other. There wouldn't be this awesome hobby without you.